Everybody brings a unique perspective, a unique attribute, and your ultimate competitive advantage comes down to the person you're looking at in the mirror. So today I'm super excited to introduce to you a guest today who's going to talk about how do you influence other human beings to see you as the human being that is a safe bet and the person to choose. Give a very warm welcome to our guest today, Mr. Christian Hansen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Christine. It's an honor to be here.
I'm super excited to have this conversation. You and I have played in the world playground, connecting to human beings, working in places and with cultures that are not our own.
Yes.
And yet there's a common theme. Everybody wants to be the person chosen at recess. So talk to us where your story begins and how you got to be the guy who built a system to help people get influence and be chosen.
You know, it's kind of funny because I never saw myself arriving here as an entrepreneur, but I got my start in higher education admissions. And so as I was the guy reading and interviewing thousands and thousands of applications, I realized that I had a front row seat at learning something that most people don't ever get the chance to learn. And that is, how do you stand out? What works, right? And I started to notice patterns, habits, and techniques that master communicators were using, whether they knew it or not, that made them stand out. And so over time, as my career progressed in running MBA programs and running HR programs overseas, and then also working in ultra high net worth finance, these same principles kept coming up again and again of how great people and great communicators stand out. So I wrote a book about it. It was called The Influence Mindset, The Art and Science of Getting People to Choose You. And it digs into this key thing that essentially our brains are wired to pay attention to certain things. And if you simply learn how to communicate in ways that the brain is predisposed to pay attention to, then you're going to stand out. And the book was a #1 bestseller, and LinkedIn put it in their top 10 list for books on marketing, which is ultimately what I love helping companies and businesses do. And I love walking alongside them, helping them shift their language in such a way that it makes them stand out and be the obvious choice in a really crowded marketplace.
What I love about where you have come from, because we were chatting before we came on screen, is that this isn't AI enabled. This isn't patterns that you went to the shortcut everybody's going to now, which is actually leading you to the sea of sameness and not, in fact, standing out. What was the first clue you had about these tips, these unique things that the highly successful SAT started with?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I remember specifically sitting in, an admissions committee meeting, and an essay was pulled up, and look, it was Friday. We were all tired, and, we're kind of the group of people that you think would drink pickle juice to ruin everyone's day. That's what we do. And we were denying students left, right, and center. But then there was this one application that just came up, right? And there was something in how the student wrote, something how they presented themselves, something how they made this difference. And I watched as all the, the Grinch's hearts in the rooms, spread to 10 sizes their size. And everyone's like, we need to have this student. Now, the grades the student had were okay, right? And the GPA, nothing was remarkable, but it's in how the student presented. I'm like, so what just happened? As my colleagues all left, I then took that application and I began to study it and go, what are the things that are working here? Later, I actually had a very good friend of mine who found out he had a congenital disease that he couldn't be a chiropractor anymore. And he called me up. He's like, I need to make a career change. So as I was chatting with him, I said, I think an MBA would be a really good fit. And at the time I was running an MBA program. And I said, I want to teach you what these strategies are. Okay. And as you apply to our program, I don't want to touch your application. I'm not going to acknowledge you. I'm not going to get involved in any way. But 6 weeks later, after I'd kind of trained and worked with him on these ideas, I watched as one of my colleagues brought up his application and said, this guy, he's a chiropractor applying to an MBA program. And his responses were amazing. And I watched as they started to repeat all the key points that my best friend had said that I, coached them how to think in that different way. And that's when I realized is they all said, we're going to admit this person, even though we would never have admitted another person like him, but he was able to explain and position himself so well, we think he'll do he'll be very successful here. That's when I realized, okay, maybe I found some lightning in a bottle and I need to share this with others.
I love it. We all bring something very unique, and it is up to us to also write that story. And that's what I hear in your example here with your chiropractor person. They could have been great on paper, but they had to influence. Let's talk about that word influence, because I think we get it everywhere, from influencers to be a person of influence to something that I think is talked about so much, but is not maybe commonly defined. How do
No.
you define influence?
I define influence as when two things occur. That when you are able to establish your competence and create connection with another person, you have just influenced them to choose you, right? Or to perceive you as more, advantageous than others. We got to remember that people don't choose or reject you, they choose or reject their perception of you. And your words and behaviors that you provide them are the materials that people use to create their perceptions. Now, we also need to understand, though, that our brains are wired to ensure our survival. And if my brain is wired to pay attention to things that help me survive, that means your brain is too. And
Mhm.
yet, in sales situations, our insecure brain sometimes hops up and takes control, and it makes us feel great. But I'm overlooking your needs at the same time. So, how can I intentionally put back my own insecure brain needs and reinvest the energy into focusing that I'm helping your brain feel like it's increasing its chances for survival? And that's one of the key things that I think when you're able to establish competence and connection and focus on ways you're helping the other person truly get to where they want to go and not just, have yourself say things that helps you feel better. That's how you can create influence in a way that influences people to choose you.
I love that this is two directional, because connection cannot be created on one side.
No.
It can be stirred, it can be emoted, but it must have a receptive side. And you call it the squirrel brain because, we talk about the biology of our own safety can lead us into some unfortunate, not serving communication patterns.
Yes.
How do we stop that?
So I've discovered that there are 7 EQ or emotional intelligence brain hacks that if you use these, it helps, give your brain a chew toy, have it sit in the corner, right? So it's not getting in the way, so you can focus on other people. So one of the things that I train people how to do, for example, one of the EQ brain hacks is, first of all, when you ask your brain a question, it helps it focus in the area that you want it to. So the person that controls the questions controls the conversation. And that especially is relevant with your brain. So, one of the questions that I like to help people ask themselves in any situation is this. Number one, how can I also acknowledge this person's emotions right now? You may be in a presentation, you've got your PowerPoint stuff, you have your brochure with all the facts, figures, and achievements that are going to showcase what you can do. But in that moment, as you're sharing this, all the competence that you can bring, how can you also acknowledge this person's emotions right now? When you do that, that creates that ideal balance of competence and connection that creates influence and helps your brain focus on truly what's most important. And one of the ways that you can do that are my 4 favorite words to use in conversations, and that is saying that must have been. When someone's talking, to simply reflect back to them, boy, that must have been really hard, or that must have felt incredible. That must have been so amazing. That must have been so fulfilling. If you can take the moment to acknowledge their emotions by reflecting back the emotion that they're expressing to you in that moment, that is one of those simple ways that helps you build connection in a way that makes you unforgettable.
I think this is interesting. Connection is one of the things that I think business owners right now are really struggling with.
Yes.
We have really run this pendulum that the world imposter syndrome is a nice badge of honor, and I can hide behind technology, I can hide behind automation, I can hide behind somebody else's opinion being louder than my own, and I constantly disrupt that pattern by saying, just remember, you get hired for your opinion, and you get hired based on your ability to be seen as human. And we have a lot of people in the business world who think emotions don't play a role,
Yes.
or struggle to have learned, while we get they should, nobody's teaching this component of it's okay to have every emotion you have. None of them are good, none of them are bad. They just are. And what they are is transient, truthfully.
Yes.
So
I
just
agree.
ride the waves. But for you, in your own experience, How do you take somebody who has that bias, who has that discomfort that you're saying, gosh, you want me to open the can of emotions at the table? How do I take the leap of faith? Because you're saying it's a big win on the other side,
It
but I'm
really
saying
is.
it's a
We need to
grenade.
understand that that first of all, behaviors. There's the phrase we decide emotionally and then we justify logically, and
Mhm.
we have to understand that we are. Uh, you know, a problem is not a problem until someone feels something about it. Okay. And so, there are things in my life that are not ideal and I need to fix, to be quite honest. But the things that I'm spending time and attention on are things that I have feelings associated with. And
Mhm.
so, though someone may come with a reason of why they want something done, I need to understand that that may be the spear tip, but the shaft of the spear behind what the driving force as to why they're doing something are the emotions that they have. And my ability to identify and respond and anticipate those emotions are going to give me a competitive edge compared to those who don't. Right? When people reach out to me for services, I can say things like, "Oh yeah, I totally can do that. That's not a problem. I can provide that value." Or I can recognize the emotion that they have, that they're trying to be the hero of their story. They're trying to overcome something. They're frustrated and they're afraid of the impacts it's going to have in their life. And so, if at the same time that I can say, "I'm here to help you get to where you want to go," and boy, I really see the difficulty that you've gone through to get to where you have, and it is amazing to see your progress. At the same time, I'm communicating on the two levels of competence and connection. The thing is that if competence plus connection equals influence, then competence without connection is just noise. And you're going to sound just like everybody else. We got to have that balance.
So we've got influence happening, we are building connection, but talk to me about this idea of choice. How do we invite, secure, and recognize when choice is actually happening?
When people are making the choice, we need to first understand what is the reason behind the choice. And one of the things is to really be sure you present is how your value is the obvious choice, and it is the most likely way that people are going to get to where they want to go. And one of I think the easiest habits and strategies of being able to secure that and influence that is by speaking in what I call insight. Now, there's four levels of information, and I cover this in my most recent book, The Influence Mindset for Sales Acceleration, where essentially there's knowledge, right? Then there's experience, then we have insight, and we have wisdom. Now, the thing is that when you speak an insight, your value is perceived to be much more higher than someone who can only speak in knowledge and experience. There was a study conducted in 2013 where a management group assessed, I think, over about 60,000, 100,000 employees, and they asked them across the world, what is the most important attribute that a leader needs to have? And they discovered that being perceived as a strategic thinker made your perceived value go up by a factor of almost 50 compared to someone else who's only perceived as being highly skilled. So my question is, when you share your value, how much of it is talking about how much you know and how much you've accomplished versus how much you're able to help someone use insight and little things so they can shortcut the way to get to where they want to go. Because when you help people see you as a strategic thinker and that you communicate insight, then you're going to be seen as the obvious choice by nearly a factor of 50 compared to someone else. So, as someone's making that choice, how can you communicate your value in levels of insight so they see you as the quicker way and the more secure way of trying to get to where they want to go?
Well, it comes down to de-risking choice.
Yes.
If I share my opinion about what is likely to come, I'm building from knowledge, I'm building from lived experience, and I have a certainty based on the fact I might be chapters ahead than the current person who is seeking a better outcome. And I always tell people, you get hired for your opinion. And when someone chooses to hire your services, they're asking that together you navigate an unknown future. They don't
Yes.
expect it to be perfect. They don't expect you to have all the answers, but they're relying on the knowledge and the expertise. And they've chosen you because of the insights you shared, which is why do not ever outsource your insight to an algorithm of a blend of a million other people. You're going to go right back to the sea of sameness.
Yes.
And so I want to ask you, how have you, because you've got two successful books, congratulations on the most recent publication, 2 successful books. Right now, how do you hold your own opinion when everybody is there to influence you away from it?
You know, this is one of those gut check things because I think how we show up authentically and with authenticity is just as an important business asset as the opinions or insights that we bring to the table. And because that is a powerful thing. You know, when you encounter someone who has a compelling personal story that has gotten them to where they want to go, and that's coupled with the insights that they bring, then that is a potent combination, a potent set of chemistry that influences you to choose them. And so but yet so oftentimes we're taught to doubt or to question ourselves and question our authenticity. But the thing that helps me stay true to being, authentic and who I'm trying to be and who I'm trying to show up with in every way that I can is simply realizing that, the greatest gift I can give to someone is the gift of myself. And I'm not putting that in any narcissistic way that I'm anything,
You
better
contribute
than my
uniquely.
friend,
No, that's
right?
fair. You contribute uniquely. Make sure you do that.
Yeah, I have a unique set of backgrounds that enables me to see things in ways that other people don't. As someone who's literally read thousands and thousands of applications of people trying to tell me stories to influence them to choose me, or that influence me to choose them, I've seen things that most people overlook. And it's that background that has enabled me to identify trends and habits that a lot of people overlook. Now, other people have other gifts, and I think it's important to avail yourself of the abilities and gifts of other people. But there's a secret sauce, and that secret sauce is unique, and it gets the results, and it has thus far.
The most powerful question to vet that gut check, my peeps here in our audience, sounds good. Is it true? Is it true for who I am when I look in the mirror? And it is important we take that time to do that, because when we're spinning and the world is asking for sound bites, it's easy to trip and give them in instinct, but not in certainty. And the truth always outs. So I want to ask you, because you have been a fabulous guest with us here, I want to know what's working for you to amplify your message. How are you finding clients right now to serve, to help them create choice and influence in equal measure?
Absolutely. Referrals right now are the main thing that's really growing my business. Um, really serving people and then empowering them to go and tell my story when I'm not in the room. I believe that one of the most important conversations in business happens between someone I have just served and someone I could potentially serve when I'm not there, right? And so, how am I empowering the people that I'm just serving now, my current clients? How am I empowering them to tell my story when I'm not there? And that's been a key thing, because then when people are out telling my story and about the service that I'm able to provide them to others, that is a warm lead that I don't have to work as hard for. And that when they reach out to me and have a conversation, I know that they have been prepared with the narrative that I've prepared other people to tell on my behalf. And that makes those sales conversations go a lot smoother. And in fact, the majority of the growth of my business is coming 100% from referrals at the moment. And talking with former people that I have served, offering additional value, sharing them, the new concepts that are in the book and how it can be most implemented and helpful for them. That is turning into more and more opportunities.
What's important to make referrals effective, guys, pay attention. He just said, I am influencing their narrative and I'm equipping them to talk well in a way that leads to trust, authenticity, and a confident solution to the problem the next client is seeking. I love this on every level. So tell us, how do we find you? How do we get these books that we have been hearing about today? How do we know more about your services?
Absolutely. My website's thechristianhansen.com. Also, I'm really active on LinkedIn. I have a weekly newsletter of original content that I see and that I write about, how to become more influential and how to increase your success. And it's, stories that I see and witness and have researched that can help you do that. So feel free to join my newsletter. It's completely free on LinkedIn. You can find me, if you write Christian Hansen Influence on the LinkedIn search bar, then we can easily connect there. And again, my website is at thechristianhansen.com.
Guys, you need to have this guy in your network.
And the
Please
books are also available on Amazon and Audible as well.
So 2 tasks, my friends. 1, go connect to the Christian Hansen. Find him on LinkedIn. Download his book and tell you how you're using that tool to create big ripples of impact. I think that's an awesome way to take action out of today's episode on here on Amplify Your Marketing Message. Christian, thank you for being our guest.
Thank you so much, Christine. It's been an honor to be here.
Absolutely, guys. Make sure you stick around, grab your resources, and we will see you on our next episode.